This month, the Alaska-Canada highway, built by and for the military during World War II, was dedicated near Soldier Summit on Lake Kluane.
But did you know one Alaskan fellow made that trip long before those soldiers carved the Alcan through the wilderness? Laurel Downing Bill, author of the Aunt Phil's Trunk Alaskan History Series, joins us on the couch for some story time with Aunt Phil. Good morning, Laurel.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being here once again. So when did dreams of connecting Alaska to the lower 48 by road really get going?
Well, long before those troops blazed a trail through Alaska's wilderness and battling mosquitoes, muskeg, and permafrost, others had thought it would be feasible to connect the last frontier to the lower 48. Veteran railroad man Edward Harriman had proposed an idea to have a road all the way from Chicago to the Bering Sea in 1899 after the gold was discovered in Nome. But after the gold played out, so did his idea.
So let's fast forward 30 years later. The dream is again stirred up by another railroad man.
Yeah, Donald MacDonald. Now, he was a locating engineer with the Alaska Road Commission. And he had a long time had dreamt about an overland coastal route that would go from Seattle through British Columbia and then the Yukon and connect on up to Fairbanks. So he and the Automobile Highway Association helped to finance a guy by the name of Clyde "Slim" Williams, who was an Alaska prospector and trapper, to go down that proposed route. So Williams hooked up his half-wolf dogs, and off they trekked November of 1932. And they went through a lot of wilderness following a crude map that MacDonald had drawn. And they made it to Seattle in 5.5 months.
I can't even imagine just him and those dogs and a little bit of help making that trip. But he wasn't done yet. I mean, an epic journey, but he wanted to go even further, right?
That's right. The next year, he hooked up Model T wheels to his sled, and off they went east and went all the way to the Chicago World Fair, where they made a huge hit, of course, him and his dogs. And then after the fair was over, off he trekked to Washington, D.C., where he met with President Franklin Roosevelt and talked to him about a proposed road to Alaska. Years later, Eleanor would say, boy, that Slim Williams, he was quite the advocate for the Alaska Highway.
Right.
So 5 years later, he still needed support to get a road built. So he made the trek again.
Yes, this time with his friend John Logan and their dog Blizzard, and off they went on motorcycles. And they went down the route to Seattle and got there in 6.5 months. Williams would say that they never missed a meal on the way, but sometimes they got a few meals behind.
Oh my goodness. I drove here with Obi, so I understand going with the dog. It adds a little comfort to a long trip. But going that route, that way, without the car,
pretty
that
impressive.
is something. So, but after all of that, though, he helped lay the groundwork, I guess. But it took war, didn't it, to really get this thing built?
That's right. On December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, that road became a reality. On March 2nd, 1942, the first contingent of U.S. troops arrived in Dawson Creek, and then those guys all got together, thousands of troops, and built 1,200 miles of road through Canada and another 200 miles through Alaska, through all that wilderness. And they did it in record time. They actually built the Alcan in less than 9 months.
Wow.
That's really impressive.
It's amazing what you get done out of necessity.
Yeah, even now driving it, it still feels pretty rugged in some spots. I mean, you'll have to fuel up every gas station that you can, and to think what we go through now, what they had to go through today, it puts it in perspective.
It really does. And when it opened for the public, they kind of talked about it in how many flat tires you had on the way as to whether it was a successful trip or not.
I like it.